Buenos and Hafide Todos Hamzu, this hearing by the Committee on Innovation and Economic, Workforce, and Youth Development is called to order. It is now 9:07 a.m. for the record, and in accordance with 5 GCA Chapter 8, subsection 8107, public hearing notices were sent on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2017, adhering to the 5 days notice, and a second public notice on Monday, May 8th, 2017, 48 hours prior. In addition, this hearing was noticed on the Legislature's website, www.guamlegislature.com. Written testimonies may be submitted by emailing Senator Biscoe Lee at guamlegislature.org, or you may hand deliver them to our office at 163 Chalan Sancho Papa here in Hagåtña. Joining me here this morning are, to my left, Speaker B.J. Cruz, and to my right, Senator Mary Camacho Torres and Senator Tom Atta. I'd like to thank my colleagues for joining me this morning. Last month, my staff and I participated in the Island Sustainability Conference hosted by UOG Center for Island Sustainability. We were all really inspired to see so many people from Guam, from our region, and from around the world discuss the importance of sustainable environmental practices. We were really overwhelmed by the diversity of topics discussed in the panels and the breakout sessions. I think sometimes we think about issues like environmental sustainability like they are abstract concepts. That people may not connect their individual choices with the larger problems facing our world or even our own island. But the decisions we make now will have a significant impact on our economy, our natural resources, and our everyday lives of our people for generations to come. In fact, one participant, I think in the wrap-up session, shared how her grandparents passed down cultural values, the cultivation of our land and the protection of our natural resources, our values embedded in our Chamorro culture. So she was saying that they were the first sustainability advocates, which I agree. The conference also highlighted just how many environmental challenges Guam is facing. Threats to our coral reefs, receding beaches due to rising seas, pollution in our air and our water, and a reliance on unsustainable resources. We use and we throw away too much plastic. Our power system relies on the importation of oil, a commodity susceptible to price fluctuations according to global economic factors beyond our control, which faces growing competition as the world moves towards renewables. Unsustainable practices also have a direct impact on our culture. Development threatens historical sites, sacred burial grounds, even our ability to pass along cultural knowledge as wildlife and healing plants disappear. We've asked the members of the Center for Island Sustainability to present some of the takeaways from last month's conference as a way to continue the community dialogue about sustainability. So my hope is that this hearing is just one of many conversations that we have moving forward as we develop strategies to tackle the environmental threats facing our island and seize opportunities to protect our resources and transform our economy. As we begin this informational briefing on the Center of Island Sustainability's 2017 Island Sustainability Conference, which seeks to maximize the impact of the 2017 conference hosted by UOG by summarizing the highlights of the conference, engaging subject matter experts on issues relating to island sustainability, and hearing potential policy recommendations based on conference conclusions. So with that, I'd like to welcome and extend our thanks to our panelists from the Center of Island Sustainability who have joined us here today. Associate Director Elsa de Mulanere, Associate Project Coordinator Philip John R. Cruz, and Associate Director for the Center for Island Sustainability, Dr. Austin Shelton. We will open up for questions at the end of their presentation, but I invite you to give any opening remarks or just go ahead and begin. Thank you.
Hafiday and good morning. Thank you, Senator Lee, for inviting us to present about our 8th Regional Conference on Island Sustainability. Again, my name is Austin Shelton, and I'm an Associate Director for the Center for Island Sustainability. And to my right are Phil Cruz and Elsa de Mulina. Good morning, Speaker Cruz, Senator Ada, Senator Torres. So this was the 8th conference that we've had on island sustainability. And it took place last month from April 19th through the 21st. And we have a PowerPoint presentation to share with you. Okay. So, the Center for Island Sustainability was established at the University of Guam in 2009. And since then, it's become a focal institute for adapting and modeling sustainable technologies that meet the needs of island communities in the broader areas of the environment, economy, society, and education. So we've been talking about these things for several years. And people know about sustainability. They know that what you're supposed to do to take care of our island, but things like this still happen. We see littering, illegal dumping. We know that to be more sustainable and to reduce our carbon footprint, it's good to ride a bike or carpool, do things to lessen your carbon footprint, but we're not seeing those actions integrated into our community. So over the past 7 years before this 8th regional conference, we've had lots of knowledge and information shared, and we've filled up people's brains with that knowledge. But we wanted, when we were planning for this conference, we really wanted to see how we can take that knowledge and turn it into action. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so taking that knowledge to turn it into action. And our steering committee, which was comprised of faculty from the University of Guam, people in our natural resource agencies, local and federal, and from our utilities, came together and we decided on a theme called Cultivating Communities for Sustainable Action. And so this is what we wanted to discuss during this conference. How can we cultivate communities for the sustainable action? If people are still littering, if they're still not being sustainable, then perhaps we thought there's a barrier between the science and actually being inspired to do it. So we wanted to bring tools on science communication to our conference participants this year. We wanted to have people, have a few speakers on science communication to help people and our professors, our natural resource managers, be able to communicate the urgency behind the science of acting sustainable. And so for one of our first keynote speakers was Ari Daniel. He has a PhD from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute in oceanography, and he used to study communication between killer whales. But one day he decided that he wanted to focus on communication between a species he better understood, which was Homo sapiens. And so he became a renowned science communicator. He's been doing this for about a decade now, and he has his radio stories featured on NPR programming and also on PBS Nova. He produces lots and lots of different pieces on science. And so he came to our conference and he helped our participants learn to carve the story out of our science. What is the urgency behind the need to act sustainably and to take action on the environmental impacts that are happening to our island? So the conference participants were really inspired by Ari. They learned new modes of everything from PowerPoints to talking to people in the community to talking to the media and to policymakers. So we're looking forward to the fruits of his presentation and the inspiration that he gave to our people. And next, Elsa will talk about our other keynote speaker.
So this is Kate Brown. She's the Executive Director for the Global Island Partnerships. This is a platform that addresses island issues and takes action to build resilient and sustainable island communities. She's originally from New Zealand and actually has lived in Samoa and is married to Samoan for 10 years. And she is a really strategic thinker and a great advocate for our islands based on all the experience he has working in the islands and now being in DC. And she's really a great voice there to advocate for our islands and is very involved here in the region. So then we have students presented from the Pacific Island Climate Science Center. They're students from Guam and Hawaii, and they presented their research topics on climate change. Well, a few examples. One was about climate change mitigation. Another one was about how to build resiliency for communities and businesses in the face of climate change. And another one was a student is actually developing an educational package for the Guam Department of Education to teach kids about climate change. It will be very useful, I think. And then we had actually, together with Ari Daniels and a few other people from UOG, a STEM and sustainability communication workshop, which was really hands-on and helped participants build community skills to positively impact STEM and actually teach people about sustainable efforts. But also, like Austin was saying, how do we communicate our science to the news media, in social media, in an effective way that people catch on and really want to do something about this and take action themselves.
Hi, my name is Philip Cruz. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at the Center for Island Sustainability. One of the ways that we were able to get students to really engage with our conference was through a competition. And since 2012, we've been holding the Green Dream Home High School competition. You guys might have heard about it. And that's where students were designing model homes that were very sustainable specifically for our region, so with our climate. But this year, the planning team and I decided maybe we should do something different other than a home design, because we know that these students they're not going to be building these homes for maybe for the next 10, 15 years after that. So we decided to have the Green Dream School competition. And so the reason why we chose this to make it schools as opposed to homes was because we felt it was a great way for students to use their research and apply it to their campus that they see every single day. And then hopefully the possibility of the schools to possibly adopt some of these sustainability plans and policies for their campus. We knew it was, we knew that they weren't going to be putting solar panels, the next day, but we were hoping that at least if the administrators would see that maybe at least behavioral changes and maybe setting some school policies to help reduce energy, water consumption. So we had the three winners. First, second, third, and third place was, first place was John F. Kennedy High School. Second place was St. John's School, and third place was actually from Saipan, Marianas High School. It was their second year attending. Last year they were first place. The reason why JFK won was because the judges felt that their plan, their sustainability plan that they presented really encompassed many different sustainability issues for their campus specifically. Some of the ideas that they had was having an educational aspect where they had service learning projects for students. They had some outreach programs for the classes. They wanted to have campus policies, the do's and don'ts regarding energy or water consumption. And then, of course, having some low-cost measures of maybe applying some energy-efficient lighting, and then maybe towards the moderate and higher-cost measures of eventually installing solar panels, having an aquaponics system to address food security, resource conservation. So their sustainability plan really encompassed many of the different aspects that the judges were really looking for.
So we had several breakout sessions, and we had over 50 presentations from the community, but also from, of course, our scientists at UOG, also from off-island, presenting on different topics. So the first one was sustainable marine environment. So there were some presentations, just some examples about sustainable fisheries, about biodiversity in our oceans, but also about coral diseases, some of the things we face that we have to address. Then we have a topic was sustainable land environments. There we looked at food security, how can we address that, being on an island and not have all the resources here. Also about endangered species. There are so many plants that only occur on Guam or butterflies, and how do we protect these species? Then there is, of course, the invasive species, which are actually a threat to our native species, like the coconut tree too. So how do we address that? Other topic was energy. There we looked at energy plans, but also energy like solutions, and there is this Guam Energy Task Force who addresses some of that and legislation and moves into action. And there's also energy audit program that Phil will talk more later. And then we also had education and outreach presentations from the community and teachers. And then lastly, we had the business and tourism topics. For instance, what's the importance of local food, buying local, also about waste management, ecotourism, and for instance, how can businesses incorporate low-impact development strategies into their buildings? Then we had several plenary topics. The first one was underdeveloped, and there we talked about the balance between landowner rights and development. The second one was healthy environment, healthy economy. This panel talked about eco-friendly and sustainable tourism. And there were some great examples actually how tourism can assist with improving our natural resources, like here in Agana, the bay here. Then the other one was sustainable utilities, and the panel talked about different sustainable practices that could be implemented, but also question, are we on track with our renewable energy goals here on Guam? Another topic was cultivating sustainable actions, and this was really the topic of our conference, and talking about how can we develop a sense of urgency to move into actions. Then we had a topic, natural resourceful, and there it was basically what I mentioned before. We have all these invasive species coming to our island. How can we prevent it? How can we be more secure, the biosecurity? How can we improve that and stop these native species from going extinct? And also our land is washing away, and we have to deal with erosion in the south a lot, and that has a great impact on our corals. So how can we address that with innovative ways? And then the last one was about climate change communities. So as you know, climate change, Senator Lee was saying, is impacting our islands substantially. There is a sea level rise, but there's also warming of our ocean water. So what can we do to address all these issues here on our island and move into action, not only on our island, but also globally, voice our opinion about that?
So we wanted to share with you a few of our takeaway messages that our conference participants had after they filled in a survey following the conference. We found kind of a common theme that we think you might be interested in as policymakers. It seems that the participants were very pleased to have a presence by all of you there, at least with your staff, or if you're able to attend in person. And legislation that was spoken about was well received from Speaker Cruz, Senator Nelson, and also a topic on plastics and styrofoams by Senator Lee. These were all well received, but there was also seemed to be a craving for more policymakers to be there and to be really involved in these topics and in these conversations. So, for example, participants asked that there be a better nexus between sustainable practices discussion and real practical and pragmatic approaches and that political push. Another had the takeaway message from our final plenary panel where we were talking a lot about styrofoam and plastics, and that was the main thing she heard from the entire conference, was that we need to do away with styrofoam. Another said, great strides have been made in the direction of sustainability. The public interactions of our leaders set the tone for our people. Passing the blame and responsibility will get us nowhere. Cooperation, collaboration, and genuine concern are necessary for any of our sustainability efforts to bear fruit. Another was inspired by our science communication topics. The ability to communicate science and to do it well is vital to getting the community on board. And another teacher said that more politicians and business people should have been present during the panel discussions. And we did try to have at least one policymaker and one business or expert from the private sector involved in each of our plenary panels. And another said that the policymakers were not present, which was unfortunate, considering much of the issues brought up surrounded enforcement of laws or lack thereof. And again, we were very appreciative to have some of you there, and we would encourage you to consider coming and sticking around more for more of our plenary discussions and our breakout sessions if you're available next April. That will be our 2018 conference. And this person, a community program coordinator, mentioned that this conference can be a safe space for policymakers, senators and mayors, scientists, and committed members of the public to mobilize action and solutions that are talked about at the conference. I appreciated that Senator Lee attended and Mayor Jesse Gogwe was part of a panel. And there was quite a few others, and they did mention Speaker Cruz's bills and Senator Nelson's bills as well. So we wanted to move into a few other topics that the Center for Island Sustainability covers. We're known for our annual conference, but there's a lot of other things that we're doing as part of our regular year-round programming.
So as you all know, every year we have our Charter Day held in March at the university, and that's one of, I believe that's our university's largest event every year. Every year since we've had, maybe since 2009, since the center was established, we've been striving for zero waste, meaning that at least 80% of the waste that we generate that day should be diverted away from the landfill. But in the past, we've been taking data, and we've been finding that over 80% actually of the waste generated wasn't even recyclable, wasn't biodegradable, so we weren't meeting our goal. But actually this year, for 2017 Charter Day, we worked closely with the Student Government Association, who puts together the Charter Day. And in the application packet for the vendors, we agreed to have a zero waste agreement form, which they had to be signed by the center. So they would come to our office, we would meet with them and talk with them about what types of materials they'll be distributing, and we'll explain to them our zero waste goal. And we'll ask them to, we actually require them to use recyclable plastic if they have to use plastic, or biodegradable alternatives. And so this year we're actually able to cut our waste our waste that went to the landfill in half. This year only 42% of the waste generated went to the landfill. The other 58% was recycled or composted. So that was a very large success. It was a big step towards sustainability, at least in terms of our Charter Day event. And the reason why we didn't really achieve our zero waste goal was because still some vendors didn't comply with our zero waste agreement, and so of course they were fined. But so we still are seeing some pushback from even our vendors, but most of our vendors did comply. So we are seeing a change that people do want to make a difference. We just have to set really set the right agreements in place. And so we're hoping that maybe even for our annual Liberation Carnival, I know that that's always been a very big problem. I know the Mayor's Council tries to push for zero waste with Ms. Peggy Denny of the iRecycle program, but I know that when I go there to volunteer, we still see a lot of styrofoam, a lot of non-recyclable plastic that just piles and piles up, and it's all going into our landfill. So we're hoping that maybe this, our Charter Day, our success here can be maybe adopted in the annual carnival. And on campus, the university, our president actually placed a ban on styrofoam to be distributed on campus. So if you were to come on our campus, you won't find styrofoam being distributed at our computer centers, in our offices, even student bake sales and other student events going on campus. It's in their agreements that they are not allowed to use styrofoam products. So I believe the culture around not using styrofoam has become very well accepted by our university. We've been doing this for several years, and of course having that support from the very top, having Dr. Underwood place this ban, of course all of the staff was right on board with it, with seeing his mission of sustainability for our campus, being that model for our region. So that's also another great model of banning it from just our university alone. It can be adopted into either the government or into the entire island. So that's something that we hope to hopefully help with the senators to kind of come up with some way to address this issue of waste. Another program that we have at the Center for Island Sustainability is our energy audit program. We received a grant from the USDA to provide energy audits to small local businesses. So basically, an energy audit is just a way of assessing the energy needs and energy waste of a business in this case. And so we can provide this to businesses in Guam and Saipan. And so any small businesses that are looking to reduce their carbon footprint, save money on energy, or just kind of helping protect our environment can actually apply for this program. And the benefit of having an energy audit performed by the center is that they get a 75% discount, because the USDA is funding that 75%. So businesses have a great opportunity to just pay a little investment now for this energy audit, which will save them money and energy in the long term, as well as it'll allow them to be qualified to apply for grants and loans from USDA to apply these energy efficiency upgrades or even renewable energies if that's what they choose to do. So this is something that we really we're trying to push the business community to take a look at this opportunity and to take advantage of it while we have it, because energy audits they can be a bit pricey, so taking advantage of this now was really beneficial.
Another new initiative of the Center for Island Sustainability and also our University of Guam Sea Grant program is the GROW initiative, which stands for the Guam Restoration of Watersheds Initiative. You're all aware of one of our major environmental concerns on island, and that is land erosion and the subsequent sedimentation on coral reefs downstream. So this is what a bay should look like on a nice, normal, sunny day. But it shouldn't look like this after a heavy rain where tons of sediment is flushing into the ocean. It smothers and kills coral reefs, and it also destroys essential fish habitat where our people depend on food from. I'm going to try to show you a video here. So this is in the Los Afua watershed. This is a portion. Oh, sorry, it's not coming up. All right, so this is in the Los Afua watershed. This is in the middle of Umatic before you get down to, if you're driving from the north down to the south, you pass Seti Bay, and then there's Fua Bay in the middle, and you can't see it from the road, and then you go further south, you get to Umatic Bay. So this is the sub-watershed right in the middle. And every time you're driving down south, you can see these badland areas on the top of mountains. And these are areas where of severe erosion. All the nutrients in the topsoil have washed away. And there's nothing that can grow there naturally. The revegetation is not happening because we don't have natural seed dispersers anymore when we lost our birds due to the brown tree snakes. So what we're trying to do in the GROW initiative, the Guam Restoration of Watersheds, is to do some research on different types of native vegetation, seeds that we can put into seed balls with the right mix of fertilizers, and then put them into helicopters and drones and drop them off into these badlands and reforest them quickly. So we just set up our plant nursery, and we're looking forward to doing experiments throughout this rainy season, and we're looking forward to finding a bunch of tools that we'll start field testing within in the next year or so. And we do have some watershed restoration success from past research using acacia trees and sediment filter socks. But I think it's important that we keep finding new tools that we can add into our arsenal of watershed restoration so that we can solve this problem on Guam quickly and efficiently. So Elsa and I are the main collaborators on this project. Was there anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, just the importance of using native trees. We're really looking in, or shrubs, we're looking at what native trees and shrubs can we use to keep our natural heritage on island, to save that. Oh, microphone off. Did you hear what I said? Kind of. Okay, so yeah, that's a good message there. So our last slide is about a grant we have. It's called Building Reef Resilience through Environmental Education. So we provide education at schools, but also at community events from elementary up to high school. And one of the things we talk about is the importance of our reefs for our island communities, because our reefs basically are protecting our islands from storms. They provide food, so it's important for our people's livelihoods, and they also protect our natural heritage, our biodiversity in the ocean, which people love to spend time in the ocean, and also for our tourism. Then we talk about the effects of climate change on our reefs, and we kind of talked about that during our presentation today. And then the rich-to-reef approach, which is Austin just mentioning, we have to really look from the reefs until the ocean and see how we can address all the issues we're facing, like with invasive species and erosion, and then therefore have healthier reefs. So, these are our sponsors for our conference. We want to thank everyone.
Yeah, and one last thing that happened during our conference was that we always try to have a watershed adventure as our site visit or field trip at the end of the conference. So this year we went to the Valley of the Latte in Talafofo, and our participants really enjoyed seeing the intersection of culture and sustainable farming and other sustainable practices during that adventure. And we had about 300 attendees total throughout the week. And again, we'd like to invite you to start thinking about what you can bring in April 2018 to our discussions for our 9th Regional Conference on Island Sustainability. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that very informative presentation, and I just want to open it up for my colleagues for any questions that they might have. Speaker Cruz?
Thank you very much. While I appreciated the takeaways, I was wondering, was there a rapporteur or some kind of scrivener that was at the various breakout sessions that took listings of the specific recommendations in each one of those sessions and has that been compiled somewhere that could be available to us?
Yes, we're actually still working on that right now. Our evaluation surveys are closed yesterday, so we're compiling everything into the takeaway action items that each of the breakout presenters had, incorporating the takeaway messages from the presenters, and we will have that in a format that we'll be able to share with you soon.
But the specific recommendations also, you know, I mean,
Yes,
I
sir.
really appreciated I'm into specifics, and so your specific recommendation of ban styrofoam. And I really do think that is a conversation that we need to have, and the discussion on maybe trying to compare if the university banned it, what are they using? The paper cups with the wax on it, or whatever it is, or for the food, the kind of containers that they have. I know that some of a few of the places on island that are very are knowledgeable have paper, composted paper type food carriers, and so I don't know how much those cost and what the difference is, and to see whether or not that's something that we could possibly move towards. But I mean, that's a specific idea that I think is something that we could address. But,
Yes,
but all of the recommendations that came out of each one of the sessions, I would like to see, because
What's a little different this year is that Elsa and I, as the co-chairs of the conference, asked our presenters to send along their 3 action items. What will it take based on all the information and knowledge that you shared at the conference? What are 3 action items that our community can take on these issues? So I think those will be those hard items that you're looking for, and we'll be including that in the report.
if you could provide that to the chair, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Cruz. Senator Torres?
I had a follow-up question on styrofoam. We talk a lot about what we can do individually to eliminate styrofoam from our daily use, but we also know that styrofoam is a big component of packaging, and whether we choose to have styrofoam in our possession, it comes with most often in some packaging form. And so are you aware of any trends in the manufacturing industry to do away with styrofoam or use less of styrofoam? Because while we on island can do our part individually, which the amount of styrofoam that one family can consume and have as a waste product pales in comparison to what might come in an electronic that they have shipped to their home. So how do you balance that concern and effect?
There are several businesses that have alternative packaging right now, but it is for sure an extra cost to these businesses. But there's different ways you can refer to the consumers, of course. And I think it's also part of the what is very important is the educational part of it, because styrofoam is not a very healthy choice. It's not good, for instance, to put hot food in there. It's not biodegradable. It's made of fossil fuels, so people should know that, I think, and I think not everybody knows that. And also the animals can eat it. You know, it can end up in our oceans, and it cannot be recycled. So these are just things that we have to make people aware of. But then the alternatives, I understand it's hard to find alternatives on Guam, and maybe that's something we have to look into, how we can, in big bulk, maybe get these alternative boxes to Guam and make them a little bit cheaper. And maybe also encourage people to bring their own packaging, you know.
That's true. And sometimes it's just an effort. I know that at home the choice is whether to have containers that you package your lunch in and you take home and you wash, and there's always those little efforts that we can do that add up, over time. But I also had a question with regard to you mentioned the breakout sessions, and this is directed to no one in particular, but in one of the breakout sessions it was the sustainability of the marine environments. And I recall a conversation that I had many, many years ago with a scientist, and he commented that in the regular course of rod and reel fishing for personal consumption, there's really not much harm that a community can do if they practice fishing. But I also am aware that over time we've had some challenges with erosion that have caused the reefs to be unhealthy and the fish stock to diminish. But there's been also discussion in some of the forums that we had leading up to the election about whether we can do something else to help with the fish stock. And one of the comments that I had made, one of those was to consider a limitation on catch, on the size of catch, because of the egg producing capability of a large fish versus a small fish, and the number of fish that one individual can harvest in any one time. But is that something that also came up in the discussion, or can you comment on what we can do in terms of policy directed in that way?
Yeah, any limits on fishing is always difficult policy-wise. There were not too many discussions on the topic during our marine sessions, but there are information out there that has been provided by our Marine Lab faculty, and also some from our Sea Grant program in the past. We know that bigger, fat female fish, it's a term that scientists are trying to get to catch people's attention, the big, fat, fertile females, the big fish are actually the best ones for producing eggs. So sorry for that term, but if, for example, a small, like a 5-inch fish can produce perhaps 100 eggs, but a 10-inch fish, if it's a full fertile female, can produce 10,000 eggs, right? 100 to 10,000, just depending on the size. So depending on the different types of species, it could work that if you have a limit, you're only catching the small fish, then the big fish have opportunities to produce. But there's other natural resource strategies that would say, don't catch a small fish and only catch the big ones, so you let the small ones have time to grow. So it's a conversation that's going to require a lot of stakeholders to determine what the goals are for increasing the populations of fish in our ocean, which species that you'd want to target that are the most important. But I will comment that that sometimes overfishing is not the problem of certain bays. There is an erosion and sedimentation problem. The work that I was doing that I've been working on in Humatic for several years started when fishermen noticed they weren't catching the same size and quality of fish as they used to, and they reached out to the University of Guam to find out what was going on. And looking back at the history of Humatic, they found that the Agate-Humatic Road in 1988 and 89 was torn down, rebuilt, and expanded. And I have pictures of the actual sediment piles that were left uncovered for long periods of time, and when the heavy rains came, that just washed into the ocean and killed a lot of the reef in a short period of time. And then today, those problems are exacerbated by illegal burning. Arson fires are set by deer poachers to make it easier for them to catch deer, and this is an ongoing practice every dry season, and these badlands continue to expand over time. So if we don't do things to ensure responsible development and also reducing and then enforcing conservation officers to make sure we have enough of them to go out there and reduce those fires, then we're not going to solve those problems. So overfishing is one component, and the poor land use practices is definitely another large component that needs to be addressed.
But probably more so the land and the erosion is probably the first order that we should address, don't you agree?
Depending on where it is, I wouldn't say it was more so. I think there needs to be a real balance between the two. We have to do it simultaneously, addressing fishing concerns as well as the land use concerns.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Ade?
Thank you. First of all, is there any videos that's available on the center's website that we can go back and review some of the discussions?
We will post those videos actually too on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
So CIS has a YouTube channel, so we'll post our videos on there.
Oh, they're not posted yet then?
No, they're not posted yet.
But you do have plans to do so?
Yes.
This thing about, reference is often made about we need policies, we need legislation to do things and whatnot, and I just wonder if there's any effort, at least on the academic side of the house, to have identified model legislation that might be proffered for, let's say, a policymaker to then take and to shape it so that it fits our island environment here. I guess we could go, I normally would go to like the National Council of State Legislators, and there they have various pieces of legislation. But you don't find too much, legislation in Iowa, about reef fishing and all that. So I think that would be very helpful if, as opposed to we need legislation to really take a look at what piece of legislation might be very helpful, and then leave that to the policymaker to shape it and decide how he's going to take it through the legislative gauntlet. Because then we also still have our work done, even if you give that model legislation. So that I certainly would welcome. You mentioned about you're developing, I guess somehow some kind of grass seeds or whatnot that can be dropped, from drones or whatever. Are you getting like federal funding for that research? Or how's those research being funded?
We started this project just a few months ago, establishing our grow plant nursery, and we've applied for several grants, and we'll be hearing back from those funders, and hopefully we can keep this project going. We had some seed funding from the University of Guam Sea Grant to build the nursery, and we have some support for students through various programs on campus. But we definitely do need to generate a lot more funds through grants, and we are working on that.
In the I guess in a lot of the research that is done, we've also has there been much effort in terms of identifying, I guess, existing legislative obstacles that just...
Yeah, I actually am glad you're mentioning the policy-making part, because I think it's really important that we look at an island level how we have to develop our policies, because now often what happens, it's top-down, we get the policies being implemented from state level, So I think it's really important we work on the bottom-up approaches, and I'm actually personally looking into ways how to protect our native species more, working from bottom-up. And that's also a reason why we're looking at using these species in our restoration approaches. And I'm happy to work with all of you on as we develop these policies.
Okay.
I'd like to add that the Center for Island Sustainability is a resource for the legislature. If you have any questions that we can help research for you, we're here to be an honest broker of information to help in the policy making. And the University of Guam School of Business also established a center on regional policy, and I think a request can be made to them as well to help you find some of those model legislation that you're talking about.
Okay, fine. All right, thank you very much.
And I think to add to that, I just want to give Speaker Cruz an opportunity to talk a little bit about Bill 79. I know we had the hearing on that, I think, last week. So, Speaker, if you want to just mention that once again for the listening public.
Yes, a couple of weeks ago we introduced Bill 79 and 80. 79 was to establish a policy commission to C3PR. Legislature, I need help. It was a commission on, it came out to be 3C to the third power, PR, CPR, yeah, C3PR. And it was to put members of the Governor's Commission together with the Island Sustainability and the university people and some policymakers from the legislature and people from the administration to try to provide the information to the legislature, at least a source of information. And then 80, I think, was the one for the outreach program and asking the university to have that outreach program and the kind of things that you're doing right now. Maybe I have it backwards, it was 80 and 70. But both of those bills have been introduced, and hopefully it'll be passed in this upcoming legislature session. But we're trying to get as Dr. Shelton put it, a honest broker committee together to provide this information, because we know that we don't have that kind of information here, and we would like to have it. And then once we make those recommendations, if we can have the assistance of the university to show us that it is possible to be a styrofoam-free campus. It is possible to be different kinds of things. And so I want to thank the university for that. But how we get that out into the greater community, and I think it's always start with one. That's at least a start. But if we're going to try to wait for China to clean the air, we would have already drowned in tidal wash by that time. But if we try to do our little bit, maybe we'll only be up to our chest. No. But anyway, I want to thank Dr. Shelton and the university for all its assistance in trying to address these kinds of issues. But I really do think it's imperative that everybody do it, and we need you young people to be the ones that go out and start all these new projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Cruz. I know in your presentation you alluded to one of the year-round projects that you have, the the energy audit program for small businesses. So I just wanted to ask a couple of questions in that regard. I think a lot of some of the pushback that we get from folks in the community and even at the conference were, can Guam afford the changes that we've kind of discussed to live more sustainably and to address climate change? So I wanted to just give you an opportunity to discuss the energy audit program a little bit in more detail and how small businesses and people can sign up for the audit, what the cost is. And I know you mentioned a 75% discount, so if they act now, maybe they can get involved in that. So yes, Asa.
Actually, that's one of the projects that I'm coordinating. So
okay, thank you, Phil.
Yes, so we have this energy audit program that's funded by the USDA's Reef, Rural Energy for America program. So this program's been around for many years. There's lots of money in place to help small businesses as well as agricultural producers to reduce their energy consumption. So what we've done is we've written a grant grant where we can get some of that funding to help leverage it towards our small business community here in Guam. And so if businesses are interested in this, they can actually go onto our website at www.uog.edu/CIS. And if they click on energy audits, there's actually more information there about what an energy audit entails, and also to find out if they qualify. I know a lot of businesses, they're not sure if they qualify, but it's really any small local business, and I believe here in Guam that's over 95% of our businesses, so maybe just not hotels and maybe Kmart, some of the really big ones, but for the most part, the other businesses will qualify. And also, as long as the business pays their own power bill. So maybe some businesses, they just pay a monthly rate for their rent, so maybe they might not see the incentive. But for those businesses who actually do pay their own power bill, they're the ones who would really see the benefits of this audit to help reduce their energy consumption. Because we know that here in Guam, the energy and costs in Guam are, I think, 3 times the national average. So an energy audit being performed here in Guam is even more not more beneficial, but you see a bigger bang for your buck than getting one performed, let's say, in the mainland United States. And so with this energy audit, if you go onto our website, businesses can fill out a form, and in the form it'll ask questions about the size of your establishment, the way it's used, and what types of energy uses you have. And we have certified energy auditors who will take that and provide a cost estimate. And so with the cost estimate that a business receives, the business will only have to pay 25% of it up front, or in total. So just pay 25%. The rest of it, 75%, will be billed to USDA. And so once that agreement is signed, and we go to the business's establishment, we do a site visit, we take a look at all of the electrical components, anything that draws energy, and we create a master plan of how you can tackle certain issues, certain energy inefficiencies, and reduce your energy use. And so we'll have no-cost measures, low-cost, moderate, and then, of course, we can provide, you can get solar panels, and it'll cost this much. And so if the business wants to, of course, they would want to apply some of these recommendations in order for it to be worth it. If there's things like purchasing new air conditioners or purchasing solar panels, they can now apply for a grant from USDA because they had the audit. So that's one of the requirements to get a grant, is to have an energy audit performed. And so, and having an energy audit performed by CIS is very, very cheap. So it's, to me, I believe it's the best option for an energy audit here in Guam at this time. Any other questions about specific details?
Well, I know you mentioned that, it would be beneficial, especially for businesses that pay for their own power.
Yes.
But, in addition to that, I think businesses that don't pay for their own power and still get this audit might be able to go back to the people that they rent from and renegotiate what their rent is, because their energy cost is significantly lowered because of the steps that they're taking based on the audit. So.
Definitely. With those, we really would, maybe the building owners, that's who we could target, is the building owners, and see if maybe they'd like to have this energy audit done, and then with all the energy savings, they can hopefully pass those savings on to their tenants. So that's hopefully another opportunity for using this energy audit program to their advantage.
Thank you. I know we discussed watershed issues at the conference, and Senator Torres also, discussed being conscious of overfishing, harming our habitat in that way. How was coral bleaching and the effects to rehabilitate and grow coral discussed? If we don't have healthy beaches, healthy bays, healthy coral, there's also that effect for the local population and our tourism economy. So maybe somebody can expound on that.
Coral reefs are important for three main reasons. They have ecological, economic, and cultural importance. Ecologically, we have the most diverse coral reefs in the United States. We have around 350 species. Hawaii only has about 100, and the entire Caribbean only has about 60 species of coral. So 350 species of coral is something to be proud of and to protect. If you're sitting on the beach in Tumon on the shoreline and you look out at the reef, you can see waves 3 to 5 feet high. But by the time they get to you at the shoreline, you see that they're only a few inches tall. And that's because the reef is dissipating all of that energy. So imagine if we didn't have the coral reefs, the ocean would be eating away at our island. So it's important for that reason as well. Economically, there was a study in 2007, which is pretty old now, and I think the number should be a lot higher, but the coral reefs bring in $127 million into our economy each year through the tourism industry, and recreational and fishing activities as well. And culturally important, it provides interactions for our families to go around the beach. I know my dad taught me how to catch when I was younger. There are grandfathers that take their grandchildren out to teach them how to throw the talata. So the coral reefs are really important for a bunch of different reasons, and there's several things we can do to protect them, or reduce poor land use practices, have a lot more education and outreach like we're doing at CIS and Sea Grant to ensure people aren't stepping on coral reefs or adding pollutants if it doesn't need to be there, and things of that sort.
Thank you. And I know that GBB also participated in your conference to some degree. Is that correct? As a panel, on the panel? And I think that there's been more of an effort for tour operators and hotel owners and other people in the tourism community to try to educate tourists about stepping on coral and just being more careful and helping us to protect our waters and our ocean and our reefs. So I think they're also trying to do their part. But it's really important that we continue to educate everyone. I really want to thank all of you at the Center for Island Sustainability and the University of Guam for all the work that you do each day. It's really important, and I don't think you get enough kudos for all the great work you're doing. I think I can speak for everybody here that we really appreciate the policy recommendations to help us address the challenges that our island faces and our future generations face. It's clear that we need to take action today, and I look forward to working with you to introduce legislation that addresses some of the health and environmental impacts that we use, things that we use every day, without knowing the health and environmental risks that are presented to our kids, our customers, and our families, especially in things like, and we talked a little bit about styrofoam, but polystyrene expanded foam styrofoam. So we know that styrofoam was made by the same company, Dow Chemical, that created Agent Orange. And I know, Elsa, you kind of alluded to the health risks that we take when we place food, especially hot food, into those to-go containers or even styrofoam plates at fiestas. Styrofoam leaches chemicals into the food that we consume. It does not ever biodegrade. It fills our island's landfill and presents harm to our lands and our waters. We need to take action, and I look forward to finding a way to do that as a community, to educate our community about this, and expanding and investing in the efforts that you've presented. So I really appreciate all the hard work that you do, and I really look forward to supporting the speaker's bill in hopes that we can continue this ongoing dialogue, and we're going to try to do what we can to send the link to this informational hearing and all the links that you will provide, and just get our community much more educated and continue this discussion. Does anybody have any other questions? Sizus Masi Todosamzu Pori Finatanmizu Pagu. This informational briefing on the Center of Island Sustainability's 2017 Island Sustainability Conference is now is now adjourned. The time is 10:11 a.m. and Sizus Masi. Thank you.